welcome back. We are excited tonight to talk with our guest, Britton Youngstrom, who is a man of many talents. Britton is the owner of Youngstrom Log Homecrafters, CEO of the Atlantis Underwater Islands, and COO of the Ice Palace, which is awesome. And we're just really stoked to talk about it tonight. Britton, welcome on, man. How's it going?
It's going good. Thank you for having me out tonight.
What did you think of my intro? I'm trying to get better at the intros. This is only the second one that I've done. And
I thought you hammered it. It was good.
I haven't. Okay, well, Britton, give us a little background. I mean, we're obviously really curious about your background and your work on Youngstrom Log Homes, obviously the underwater Atlantis tool as well. But I think tonight we really want to talk about Ice Palace. But give us a little bit more about your background and tell us what you've been working on.
Yeah, my dad's always been a visionary. He's always been coming up with ideas. I mean, as early as I can remember, and he's kind of bestowed that on us. So, I mean, starting as young as like elementary school, we'd buy like peach rings in bulk, and then we would break them down, and then we'd vacuum seal them in bags and sell them for 25 cents. I'm like, oh, every bag I'm turning a $7 profit. I'm doing pretty good. you know, Ever since that, we would always
dealing peach rings on the playground.
Yeah, we always had a good growth mindset on things. You could say we're always looking at that next step. I think the power of not yet. You're always looking to take that next step. I was lucky to grow up in a log home, which is my family. We're fourth generation log home builders. So grew up, I helped my dad build log homes. We traveled a lot. We traveled down to Mexico. Helped give us a good diverse upbringing. My dad, he was inventor. He invented the underwater Atlantis. He built log homes. He eventually sold his log home company to Lincoln Log Homes, or Lincoln Logs, which we all know.
Yeah.
And then he's a nuclear health physicist. So he's, very diverse background, did a lot of different things. And he kind of bestowed that on us. He also went into the military, was in the National Guard, and he never really wanted us to go the military route, and he didn't want us to go the log builder route. So he was always pushing us to get an education, to kind of outgrow the boundaries that he had lived in his life. So we all did. I went to school to become a paramedic firefighter and did that for 5 years and was looking at PA school. And it just got to the point where you kind of outgrow that whole system, the boundaries, they feel confining, the 9 to 5, I don't know, however you call it. But it was in 2017 that we had a family friend approach my dad about ice palaces. He said, I went to Finland for a few years, and they had ice palaces everywhere out there. He's like, I always thought that'd be cool to do in southeastern Idaho. And so my dad, being the inventor he is, came up with a patented method. It started in his freezer when we had a deep freeze, and he was figuring out how to freeze ice and then grow it from there. And so that year, the winter of 2017 was the Ice Palace's first year. And then the conclusion of this season would be the end of our 7th year running. So
the
yeah,
seventh year. Wow.
kind of a brief synopsis. Been building log homes and operating that company for about 5 years now, and we're just barely getting Atlantis up and running again. So
Yes.
kind of got our hands dabbling in a lot of different things.
Wow. That all just sounds super exciting. And Keith, I've actually had the chance to visit Britain, and I've seen the log homes that he and his family built, and they are truly remarkable. I mean, I know that Britain, you and your family have, secured really precious parts of land out there near the Butte, and have built some just incredible homes. And so I've seen the work firsthand, and it's really quite amazing. So that's a pretty cool trade. So what I'm excited about to talk about, obviously, is Ice Palace. This is such a unique idea. Obviously, it sounds like it was something that was inspired and that you guys have worked on. It sounds like your dad has a really cool, patented idea. So tell us, what is the Ice Palace exactly? If somebody, were to try to look it up, what would they discover about the Ice Palace?
Well, you know how people always say there's a hole in Antarctica or wherever, and you step inside of it? That's how I always picture the ice palace. You're entering a different world when you walk into the ice palace. Now, what it is it has the footprint of about a football field to half a football field. And just depending on the season, and it's entirely enclosed in ice that's 10, 12, 15 feet high. So you enter it through tunnels. So there's enclosed ice tunnels. And it was 3 years ago, Guinness Book of World Records recognized us for having the world's longest man made ice tunnel. So we
No
broke the
way. I
record
didn't
for
know that.
400 feet of enclosed ice. And so that was really cool. So picture this with me, right? You're walking through these tunnels. It's nighttime. You know, a little bit of snow is falling from the sky. The music's playing. You just barely walk past Olaf, and you know Elsa's inside the ice palace, right? You enter the ice tunnel, and there's lights all around you. You're walking in, and then you enter into this winter wonderland. There's fountains, there's fire shows. The entire ground is groomed, so it's got good traction, but it's mushy, it's fluffy snow, and you can explore this entire footprint with interior ice structures, second story ice structures with ice stairs, spiral staircases. It's all handcrafted. We have ice
Hmm.
blocks that we pull from the lake, building ice bridges that people can go under and go on
Wow.
top of. So, I mean, we really took a lot of that experience we have with building log homes and then wrapped it around building with ice. It's a lot of chainsaw work. And one of the cool things about the Ice Palace is it's family owned and operated. So I have 6 siblings. And, that first year, every single one of us, we were out there building with my dad side by side, putting up these ice structures. And you know, I like the name of your podcast is Growth Talk, and that's what we did with the Ice Palace. We were all out there. My dad, being the owner of the company, was out there stacking ice with us, putting pipes together, running water lines. And as we've grown, we've slowly taken steps up and up and up, right? So last year, we had 95 employees that we had operating underneath us. I, I'm the director of operations, the COO, and then I have underneath me marketing, the general managers, and and then from there we just keep spanning it out. And then right there on the same level with me, we have finance, new market development, R&D, tech. So as we've grown every year, we've expanded, really tried to duplicate ourselves. So we do have a passion about building with ice, but that doesn't mean that I have to be the one building with ice anymore, which is the brilliant thing about upscaling a business. They It's interesting. We're always trying to 10 times. They say it's easier to 10 times than 2 times. Sometimes people get so caught up in the small things of how can I 2 times this, that they look over the whole process of being able to 10 times their company, whether it's not being able to relinquish control or anything like that. But we stumbled across a process 2 years ago called EOS. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. It's called Entrepreneurial Operating Systems. So it's based off of a system that Gino Wickman developed, based off of a book he wrote called Traction. So we actually had uh, his name. He was an integrator. It was part of this worldwide system and organization, and he wasn't cheap. It was like $5,000 a day to meet with him, and so we brought him in. I think since we've met with him close to 6 or 7 times
Hmm.
because the value is always there. He's helped us to grow, and he has connections. He's helped us to, really take those next steps that a business needs to grow bigger and bigger. So that's kind
We
of,
need we need to get
that's
him on the
where
podcast. We need to get him on here, Britt. We need you to hook that up.
Yeah,
I can do it.
only $4,999.
Yeah,
Still,
exactly.
man. So
That's for a full day, right? So it's only 1 hour. So,
So actually, I want to talk more about that because that sounds super interesting. Because you obviously come from a very talented family, all very entrepreneurial minded. So when Gino came in and talked to you, what were some of his immediate recommendations to 10 times the business?
right. Well, it's structure, right? And it's Gino Wickman's book and an integrator that worked with that. So we had an integrator come in, and his
Integrator.
recommendations. So he helped us to structure the company. He helped us build an accountability chart. Everybody has a role and a seat. And then one of the things is you make sure that people 100% right seat, right person. Because you can have the right person, but if they're in the wrong seat, then it's not working. But you can have the right seat, but the wrong person sitting in it. So you need to shift things up. So accountability, that was a big one. And then the structure. Also, one of the things that I love about it is there's a meeting agenda. They call it the meeting pulse that comes with it. So it's an hour and a half long meeting that you have once a week. So we had an executive meeting. It's an hour and a half long and it's very structured and very strict because people get burdened with meetings. It's a
Yeah.
struggle, but this helps you to prioritize the most important stuff. So you start with what they call rocks. We've all heard the analogy of the jar. If you have sand, gravel, and then big rocks and a little bit of water, if you put the sand in first, if you put the little things in first, and then you put the gravel in, the big rocks won't fit. But if you can tackle the big rocks, put the big rocks in, then put the gravel in, and then put the salt or the sand in, you can even have room to pour water in there, and it all fits. So
Mm.
that's kind of the concept of rocks, which are 3 month goals that you set as a company. So you have about 5 rocks that you set, and you follow up with every single week. You're checking in on these rocks. This is the company's most important goals for this quarter. So first you check in on rocks. Then if there's anything there, so right before rocks, there's a scorecard. So that's rocks. And then there's scorecard. So the scorecard is your weekly check-in with metrics, which is very important because I feel like if you don't know where you've been or where you're at, how can you ever know where you're going? So you find metrics to track progress of those rocks. So these are a weekly metric. So for us, it was gift shop sales, attendance, tickets sold, you know, incidents reported, different things to help us track, including like our weekly revenue,
Mm.
how many refunds we had to issue. Usually, this is about a 5 to 7 numeric list. It's if you're on a desert island, what's the 5 to 7 most important numbers that'll gauge how your company is operating. So from there, you check in on your rocks, then you go to your to dos, and now every single time one of these are off, it gets put down at the very bottom of the agenda to address. So if a scorecard metric's off, it goes on the agenda. If the rock is off, you're going to talk about it. So you check it on to dos, same thing. You either say it's done or it's not done. You don't dive into it. So everybody reports on it. No BS, just done, not done.
Done, not
Then
done.
from there, it's called the IDS, where you identify, discuss, and solve. So from there, and now you've already put items on this IDS list, right? You've put off track scorecard metrics, off track rocks. So when you look at that on the IDS, it goes people, rocks, scorecard, and to dos. So if there's somebody that's struggling, somebody that's off track and not keeping track of their rocks, it could be a person problem. And the meeting, you have to inspire a trust within your team where you can trust each other and be transparent and totally open. Their system really thrives off of that. So it that's kind of that meeting pulse. You address the most important issues in that order, and everybody in the room, they say, what are the 3 most important things we want to talk about? Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right, we hit those. All right, 3 most important things after that. And at the end of the day, you'll probably still have items on that list, but you've addressed the most important things that were pressing to your business, right? I so it's structured well. You strictly stick to that hour and a half segment, and then from there you check in on cascading messages. Who needs to know what we talked about? Who needs to be talked to? What information needs to make it down the line? And then you rate the meeting on a scale of 1 to 10, and then
Interesting.
that's it.
You know,
So
there's another dynamic that I'm curious about with that whole model, everything that you just described, and that's working with your family, because then things can become much more personal. I feel like the conflicts can intensify. What was that like? Because I know working on a family business with family, have you guys seen that show Billions, or not Billions? What is it called? Succession, right? No, you guys
yeah,
haven't seen
I haven't
that.
seen it.
Anyways,
No.
there's going to be some internal conflict and some backbiting things. What's been like that for your family?
Yeah, no, well, people always ask us, how's your family so close? We do Sunday dinner every single Sunday. We all get together, all six siblings, all the grandkids. Helps our family dynamic keep going. But, in these meetings, like when we meet with this integrator, it's all out on the table. So my brother, and he could listen to this and, relate with it. I He was, hoping to be the CFO position. And he went to school for accounting for a while and then ended up getting a bachelor's in psychology.
Oh wow.
And so, also a diverse background. He, we just didn't know at the time if he was fully competent and capable, because you don't know what you don't know, of fulfilling that CFO seat. And that came out in the meeting because this is another element of EOS. It's called GWC. Do you get it? Do you want it? And are they capable? Do they have the capacity? So that's how you gauge if somebody's in the right seat and if it's the right person. So we all, after building an accountability chart, laying out all of our positions, they pointed at each person in the room and said, okay, Britton, he is the director of operations. Does he get it? Does he want it? And does he have the capacity for it? And then he pointed to every person in the room, and they had to answer all three of those questions one by one. So
Wow.
like
So that's some
my
pretty
sister,
intense, like,
does Britton get it?
yeah.
Yes, he gets it. Does he want it? Yes. Does he have the capacity for it? Yes. And so that was interesting because it came up a couple times where we're like, I don't know if they get it. And we're saying this to their face. They
Yeah.
say,
I was
well,
gonna say that can be an intense
do
conversation.
they get it? And you're like,
I'm looking at Keith right now and he's looking at me and goes, Ben doesn't get it. He doesn't.
he doesn't get it. No. And, so there was, I think it was actually a really good building experience for us because those hard conversations came out. Like we admitted, sometimes we were worried that they didn't get it. And then from there, we built structures. We put mentors in place. We were able
Mm.
to structure it. And one of the interesting things that's always reiterated is that you don't build a seat around a person. You never build a seat around a person. So you don't do it just to keep somebody in the company. There is a point where you have to cut fluff. You don't create this seat just so that person has somewhere to sit because it's a liability. And that's one of the things that's interesting about this whole business model is that it makes you ask those hard questions, to think about it and really think what is best for the company to grow. And it sounds really cutthroat, but at the same time, if you're not the right person and you're sitting in a seat, oftentimes they are relieved when you let them go because it's a
Uh-huh.
burden. It's been straining them. They know they're not fulfilling your expectations. And, they're like, oh, thank you. That is a weight off my chest. And sometimes there's not another seat for them in the company, but sometimes there is. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. So I think that you are at a really cool position, because if I'm running an ice palace, I feel like, the chief operating officer is definitely the most fun position. Um, Walk us through some of the challenging logistics that you have to think through when running an ice palace. Like take us step by step. Like you did that already a little bit, but from a logistical perspective, what's it like when somebody drives up to park their car and buy a ticket and pet the reindeer? Like what does that all look like?
Well, now, it starts obviously months and months before the season even
That's
starts,
true.
right?
You got to go back even further.
Yeah, I've got to go back even further. Like, I'll use this year as an example because this year was tricky. We have a location secured out in Minnesota. This is September. We're going into it. We have all of our stuff stored there. We're ready to go and tackle it. Now, come mid-November, we found out that the landowner didn't secure the proper permits. He didn't fulfill his end of the contract. So I immediately had to fly out to Minnesota to sort out, you know, contractual litigations to figure out what we could and couldn't do. And then we ended up moving to one of the city parks in the area. And so in that process, it was a lot of meeting with city officials, meeting with lawyers and attorneys, but to secure positive contractual agreements for our new location. And then on top of that, the terms of that, monthly, weekly, also securing all the new rentals, skid steer rentals, equipment rentals, light tower rentals, generator rentals, to be able to operate that. We have our water metered with the city. And so, we were running close to $250 a day in water alone. And so those are kind of all the logistics that have to happen before. And this guy ended up keeping all of our property. He didn't turn it back over to us, and we
Jeez.
still, it's kind of a big mess there. I learned a lot about proper wording and terminology, and that we shouldn't write our own contracts. Always have a local attorney write your contracts. They know the law. They know.
Interesting. So we shouldn't be using ChatGPT to draw up any
Yeah,
agreement.
exactly. I don't know. Maybe it's probably past the bar. So.
Or if you do, you just got to prompt it. You are an intense lawyer in Minnesota, and that's the prompt you got to
Yeah,
give ChatGPT. Sorry.
exactly. So
Wow. Okay. Keep
yeah,
going.
so, yeah, I learned that whole process, of working with the city officials. We had to get submit site plans, get it. We had to get like a building safety. We basically had to get a building permit to build the out of ice. And so it was very interesting because I had to submit safety specs on ice, and which is interesting because like 3 feet of ice can hold up to a 747 Boeing engine. People don't realize how phenomenally strong ice is.
Wow.
That deep blue look, the deeper the blue, the stronger the ice.
You
The
know,
lighter
it's
the
so funny.
ice.
It's so funny
Yeah.
you say that. I just recently watched on Instagram this random video of this iceberg that flipped up, and they commented on like how blue it looks, but then it's like, whoa, that's really blue when it flipped all the way up. So I've
Yeah, the
seen the
more
scientific evidence
oxygenated
behind
the
that.
ice is, the less dense it is, so it's not so strong. But it's
Interesting.
very, very interesting there. So you get all of that secured. What the big things we look for is utilities and parking with a population that can support the ice palace, and temperatures, obviously. So from there, about a month before the ice palace opens is when building begins. We lay thousands and thousands of feet of poly pipe, extension cords, lighting, and then as soon as the temperatures hit, we start building with ice. We build with what we call ice pillars or ice logs, which is a kind of a hint at our roots. They're diameter about that big, and then they're 8 feet long. And so we basically frame the entire ice palace out of ice, and then we have over 70 sprinklers that are spraying that ice structure and growing it. So
Wow.
now that the ice is growing, we're constantly adjusting sprinklers. We get it lit. We have speakers around the house, and then we're ready to open. We're ready to run with it. So my dad has two of four privately owned reindeer in the state of Idaho. So
I've seen them. I've seen
um,
them.
yeah, so they're really cool creatures. So we have reindeer at our Idaho location, and next year we're looking at potentially going to Wisconsin. So it'd be in Minnesota and Wisconsin out there and abroad. Uh, and I mean, the cool thing about the whole business model, right? We're not, and this isn't demeaning these other industries, but we're not buying products and peddling them at a higher price than what we bought them for. I mean, there's your whole business model is adding value to somebody's life. It's based around families. It's based around how can I add value to this experience so that these people feel enlightened, they feel uplifted, and they want to go conquer the world.
Wow.
And that's really our goal. We base our music around that, our core values around that, our performances around that. Is how can we provide the most positive experience and most bang for their buck? So, I mean, it's really, I mean, I wouldn't say, yeah, I mean, it's fairly unique. You know, we can bring this magic into somebody's life that they can't really experience elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame Keith and I are in Florida. Otherwise, we'd be recommending locations. Keith, what do you think? Are we making a trip to Wisconsin or Idaho this
I'd
next season?
I'd be all for it. How soon, like, or I guess what month in the year do you typically open by? I mean, I'm sure it varies,
Yeah,
but
no, so we start in November, building wise, but come December 15th is when we want to open. So before Christmas is ideally.
Right. Yep.
gotcha.
And
That's
and tell
super
us more
cool.
about. So I heard Idaho, Wisconsin. Do you have other locations that you guys are doing or have scouted?
Yeah, you know, we've scouted locations in Colorado, in Utah, in New York, in New Hampshire, in Maine, Connecticut. Really, anywhere that the population is there and the temperatures are there, we can put an ice palace up. So it's tricky in southeastern Idaho because within an hour drive of the ice palace, we have about 200,000 people. And within an hour drive of our Minneapolis location, we have about 3 million people. So
Wow.
with our first year out there, it did better than our Idaho location, you know, by a long shot. So it really drove us to want to expand and continue that expansion.
Very, very cool. So have you had do you have multiple, or I guess are you open in multiple locations simultaneously now, or are you choosing one location at a
Yeah,
time?
so we are we're open at the same time simultaneously. Um, so yeah, we have Idaho and Minnesota running at the exact same time, and it'll be the same concept when we introduce the Wisconsin location. We've had a lot of people ask us why we don't franchise and why we don't license it. Um, you know, we kind of keep it close to the family just a little bit. And they're like, well, you could grow so much faster if you did this. And for us, you know, the growth is important. You know, we need to be sustainable and keep growing so that we can support our families and add value to our employees' lives and the economy. I but we kind of keep it close because it means a lot to us. So, you know, we grow slower because of it, but we have every step we take forward is a foot well planted, you know?
Yeah, totally. And I think that's honestly the probably the better way to go about it. Just from like, if I was to have my own personal take on it too, like I just feel like I immediately thought Walt Disney, and like
Yeah.
that's within the family, I mean, I don't know. Now it's like probably
Yeah.
just completely public, but at the time, I'm sure he called all the shots, and like anyone in the family who was probably helping him out had a say. But yeah, that's super cool, and I think too, like from just growing long term like that, it's you guys, it's going to be way more rewarding, a lot more fulfilling probably. And like you said, like I think a lot of times, once you start accepting outside investor money too, it could really change the trajectory in like the direction and the overall creative take that you guys put on things too. So that's something to always think about as well.
You know, something else that I'm always kind of curious about. Tell us about, and I don't know how much you can reveal because it's a patent, right? But can you tell us a little bit more about what was the patent that your dad was able to secure on the ice building process? Because that sounds very
Right.
interesting to me.
So throughout my dad's system, we're able to produce, you know, these cylindrical ice pillars, and we can create thousands and thousands of feet of these ice pillars at a time. So you can have a single stick of this ice pillar that's 100, 200 feet long, and then we walk along it with a chainsaw, and we're able to just kind of cut right through it in our 8 foot
Mm.
sections and build it from there. We use 7 inch material, 5 inch material, 2.5 inch material, 14 inch material, just depending on what the building needs are. Um, it's a process that, you know, involves kind of plastic. You know, it's a disposable process. It's Very simple, but it works very well and very efficiently.
That's cool. Because, when you were describing, one, how large the ice palace is, we're not talking about, somebody's backyard. This is a big ice operation. And the amount of time. So what's the time frame look like from, first laying down the pipe, collecting the water, to being completed and starting to receive guests? What's the timeline look like for that?
The quickest that we have done it is a week and a half,
A week and a
which
half. Okay. So
which is phenomenal. And I still look at it and don't know how we pulled it off. But the ideal is close to 2.5, 3 weeks of freezing ice, so that when we open our doors, it is majestic and it's only going to get bigger. That's what we always tell people. And usually on our first week open, we give bounce back passes to come back later in the season to experience it again, because the ice palace you see in December, it's not the same thing as what you see in February, because it's had
interesting.
months of growth. So ice can be up to 10 or 15 feet higher. We can have second stories that are opening up, ice slides that are opening up. So it's a very dynamic experience. If you come at different parts in the season, you're going to get a different experience.
That's
Wow, that's
cool.
so cool. Are you able to talk a little bit about cost of like what it would be like just putting together everything for one particular season?
Yeah, so when we dive into a season or a new location, I'll base it on our new location cost. Um, we need to get new poly pipe, new lights. We need to get equipment secured. We're looking at contracts and even new buildings, sheds, ticketing systems. Building out and stocking an entirely new gift shop. Opening a new location costs are upwards of $300,000 to $350,000. Um, and then, I mean, payroll is a big expense of ours. I mean, there were some weeks, every 2 weeks, we had $70,000 in payroll, and and that's just in 2 weeks. It's pulling $140,000 every month, and so it's interesting because people are like, I did the math. I know how much the Ice Palace makes. You guys are bringing it in. But they don't see all the background work. It's given me an entirely different perspective whenever I see any kind of business, because I look at the background work. It gives you a bit more perspective, I and appreciation for the what goes into those businesses to make them succeed and really become great. Our Ice Palace season 2 years ago was pretty fruitful. We had our Idaho location running, we had our Minnesota location, and I can't exact numbers, but we did break $1 million between both locations in revenue, which it's just, and it's all based off of making people happy,
Yeah.
giving them a
Cranking out
positive
magic.
experience.
That's great. So what on your busiest night in peak season, how many visitors are coming to the Idaho and Minnesota location?
Yeah, so we had in one night out in Minnesota, we had 4,000 people come out. And on that same night in Idaho, we had 2,500 people come out. So
That's
in one
great.
night, we had, our business model, our influence, we were able to, touch 6,500 people. And, throughout the season, and just in Minnesota last year, we had 75,000 people come through. So, I mean, no, I lied about that. They had 40,000 people come through, and Idaho had 35,000 people come
But
through.
total.
So together, we had close to 75,000 people come through both locations. So
That is so neat. That is so cool, man. The Ice Palace. And it just sounds I love your focus. This whole conversation has not been necessarily about the green as much as it's been about the positive influence that you've had on people who have had a chance to visit the Ice Palace. And that's a cool aspect of it for sure. And it's family driven. So you know that there are some core values being emulated as part of that experience. Some more questions that I'm curious about is it's kind of fun to talk about the challenges. I mean, we already talked about this guy that, tried to make off with your property. What other kind of behind the scenes challenges do you have to deal with when you're getting these thousands of people showing up at the Ice Palace?
well, I'd say a consistent experience. One thing that I don't know what it is, we have very, very high turnover, at least in our Idaho location. We're a college town, so maybe people aren't as committed or a little bit more flaky. But if we do a 40-person hire and we bring on all of these people, by the end of 2.5 weeks, we'll have maybe 10 or 15 of them left. And
Interesting. Wow.
maybe it's the younger generation, but it's, oh, it was harder than I was expecting. I was cold. And you're like, it's the
I was
ice palace.
told. I
No,
can
it's
understand that.
people show up for work and they're wearing their Vans and jeans. And it's like,
And
like, what are you?
what do these roles comprise of? Like, what are they supposed to be doing? Are they, tending to the reindeer? Are they, what
Yeah,
does it
so
look like?
we have reindeer attendant. That's one of the roles. Front
That'd be a fun
desk,
one.
roamer, sleigh attendant. Those are different roles. A lot of our employee and workforce is in the building side of building the ice palace because we have to throw a bit of an army at it. But that's one
Hmm.
of our big challenges that we sought to conquer this year because when you hold on to, we call them slow walkers. And it's just it fits it perfectly because you picture somebody as a slow walker in any kind of building environment, it is not ideal. Uh,
Yeah.
so I mean, they have their head down, you give them a task, and they just mosey on their way to get that task done. The more you hold on to them, they're great people. But the more you hold on to them, the payroll rates keep going up. You're not getting as much done. But if you're able to find 5 people that do the work of 10 and pay them the pay of 8, you're able to optimize. In Minnesota, we had 3 people that did the work of 10 and paid them the pay of 8, because they were just phenomenal. They built the ice palace off their very backs, when in Idaho we had close to 25 people we threw at it and they were barely keeping up. So
Interesting.
the
Interesting.
quality of people, it's so important. So when we're doing job interviews now, we worked hard to lay out kind of our core values, what we represent. They bounce around integrity, tenacious, imaginative, growth mindset, and fanatical attention to detail. So we, as we're interviewing them, we tell them we hire off of these core values, we fire off of these core values, we reward, we promote, we discipline off of these core values. So really, when you have that structure, if somebody's not living your core values, you approach them, you say, hey, we've noticed that you haven't really been very tenacious lately. You haven't been attacking work. You haven't been very motivated. Is there something we can do to help? And they're like, oh, we talk it through, and you're like, okay, I'm going to check in again in 1 week. And then I think in the EOS model, it's like every month or 90 days you're checking in. But for Ice Palace, where we have such a short season, it's a very fluid and dynamic operation. So if after another week you approach them and you say, hey, we haven't really seen an improvement, and it really, and they're like, yeah, because they realize it at that point that nothing's changed, or maybe something has changed, and but it'd be noticeable. So it gives you the ability to have the difficult conversations a little bit easier. And, but I'd say that was one of our biggest challenges, was the quality of labor and finding somebody that you can trust to duplicate yourself and really, uphold your core values.
Hmm.
Totally. Do you happen to know like a percentage of um, people that you rehire for of the next season? So like if you hired 50 people for one season and the following year, maybe like what percentage roughly do you have a sense for of like how many return the following year?
Yeah, you know, this last year in Minnesota, we had close to a 75%, 80% return rate.
Oh
And
wow,
those are
And
that's
the
really
good
high.
ones. Those are the ones that put it on their backs and built the ice
and
palace,
those are
right?
the ones that believe in it. You're not just finding an employee with them. You're converting somebody. When you think picture of converting somebody to Christianity or something, I mean, you're hitting it with the sword, like the
Getting people to
soul,
buy in.
who they are. And that's what these people, that's how they view the ice palace. You can't train it, you can't teach it, but when you find them, they don't want to go anywhere because they see the difference it makes in other people's lives. um, Usually we find that those people are a little later in life. They're in their late 30s, 40s. Not that that's later in life, we're all there.
Hey man, easy. I'm coming up on that.
but a bit more experienced, a bit more perspective. They're not so wishy washy. But when you are dealing with people in their 20s, there's still a lot of life to experience, and I don't know. Sometimes it's a little bit harder to find the people that want to give their heart and soul into something. So
So personnel, yeah, I could see that could be, hard to do, hard to maintain, and
especially because it's seasonal.
yeah,
exactly.
That's even wait,
Well, now
75,
that's
eighty
the
80% high.
genius. Sorry, I overtalked you, but that's part of the
No, you're good.
genius of at least Youngstrom Log Home Crafters is that we're able to pick the cream of the crop of Ice Palace and offer them a job for full, for year-round
right. You
employment.
got a good
'Cause-
farm system. It's like
Ooh.
minor league
exactly.
to the
And then we're
majors.
able to roll them, yeah, right into stacking logs, and they'll stack logs with us all summer and into the fall, and then as we could stack through the winter, but why when we have the Ice Palace? So we slowly shut down those operations and roll all of our employees into the Ice Palace. And then at the end, those that are moving on can move on, and we grab from the previous year's employees and say, "Hey, you were a phenomenal worker. What are your summer plans? Like, let's treat you to something." And it's cool because one of our best employees, he's been with us for 4 years now, and his first season, he was with us at the Ice Palace. Then we rolled him into logs and we took him down to New Mexico to build a log home with us. And then we held on to him. He was fresh out of high school. Now it's just cool to see somebody grow, and I feel like that's what we're about. That's our core value. We've seen him go from a high school kid to a skilled carpenter and a skilled builder, a critical thinker, and a leader that's helped us and was crucial to setting up a new location. And he's only 22, and
Yeah,
it's really cool to grow the leaders of the future.
that is cool because it's a big operation, and you're starting to add additional locations across the country, and I'm sure you're starting to put a process together that can be replicated. It sounds like you've got the right people on the bus, like you described, and you all have a similar mission that you're trying to accomplish, which is just really neat to hear about.
I wrote a book
You did write
about
a
the
book.
it's only like 65 pages,
That's great,
but
though.
it's kind of in-house, a complete guide to how to build the Ice Palace.
No
And
kidding.
so
You
I
did
dive into
okay. Great. We're gonna need to get a link. We need to get a link to that.
every systematic uh, approach of it, plumbing, electrical, tools required. And I guess that's kind of why we hold it close, is because it's all of our dirty
Oh,
secrets.
gotcha. The trade secrets. Okay, so we won't be getting a link to
Might
that.
not get a copy. Maybe you can. Maybe I'll share it with you
Okay,
after.
good. You'll loop me. You'll loop me in on it. That's
But
great.
yeah, it's a good experience.
That's
Cool.
super cool, man. Oh, one of the questions I had from earlier was, have you thought about? I mean, I'm sure you've thought about this, but um, I'm assuming that you haven't purchased any land to like make a more permanent location to build the ice palace on.
Ah.
And if you haven't done that, like, what are some? Have you looked into it and maybe just still are looking, or what's the kind of status there?
Yeah, I mean, we've dived actually a lot down that rabbit hole. Um, we haven't yet due to capital to buy this land, but part of our vision is in securing a permanent location that can bring in revenue year round as well. So, and then we can start looking at year round employment for the cream of the crop employees. Whether that's Airbnbs, we this last year we got a yurt with the Ice Palace. So it's a 30-foot diameter enclosed Mongolian yurt.
Oh,
It has really
cool.
pretty lattice work on the inside, and I mean it's a phenomenal structure. But we have to take it down every year, and so
Yeah.
it's a pain. But if we had a permanent location and some of these yurts on it, I mean, it would be a great glamping opportunity. You can install wood burning stoves inside of them. So we have looked at different things to help that year round revenue. And I don't know, have you ever heard who's the largest real estate tycoon in the world? Either you guys know?
Couldn't say. Trump. No.
No.
McDonald's.
Who is
So
it?
McDonald's
Oh,
buys
McDonald. Yeah, that
Oh
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
seen it.
yeah.
I've seen the
McDonald's
founder.
buys land of every location. And so they own the most land out of any other entity in the world because they buy
Interesting.
every location. They're not renting. And so we have dived a lot into looking at that. I think it would provide a lot more stability in our locations as well and allow us to invest in our own infrastructure. Like this location that we ended up not working out for us. Last year, we put close to $30,000 of work into it, putting a well in, putting a pump in, upgrading electrical. We wanted it to be a long term thing, but it's not our place. And the contract fell through. So,
Right.
it is definitely a learning curve there.
Wow.
Gotcha.
I love the idea of merging sort of business models with the yurts that you could rent out as an Airbnb property as part of the experience. Cause I feel like people would, pay handsomely for that. It's kind of a luxury experience right outside of these ice palaces. Could be a really fun, family opportunity and family adventure there. So, okay. And so you talked about Idaho, Minnesota, Wisconsin. When you're looking down in 5, 10 years, where are the locations that you want to have the ice palace at?
Right. Well, silly or not, so Las Vegas, we've looked a
Las
lot into
Vegas. Put
to
it right inside of the dome.
enclosed. Yeah, well, in essence, you can buy inflatable domes, and they're the size of football fields with refrigerator units. And if you can just keep them
Wow.
below
Jeez.
freezing, you can operate in any. Maybe we'll go to Florida.
Hey, all right. Now we're talking.
It's cold
Yeah,
today.
lay the groundwork for it. Um, but we picture really trying to tap into that market as well as expanding to New York, to Maine. We're hoping to open a new location every other year here
Every
moving
other
on.
year.
So we'll establish a new location. We'll find our replacements. We'll train them. We'll get it anchored in the next season. And then I think there's even a few years stacked in there where we're hoping to open back to back seasons. So we definitely have goals by 2030. I think we hope to have 8 locations that are open and running. So, times of the essence. We need close to a new location every year, and well, yeah, we're excited about it.
Well, I'm excited for the Florida location. Put me down for a yurt.
Yeah, there you go. We'll get you on the
Well,
VIP experience.
this has been so much fun, Britton. Thanks so
Wait,
much
hang
for.
on, Ben.
Oh,
I
you
gotta
guys
jump
more? Go
in.
ahead, Keith. What do you
I got
got?
another one for you. Do you happen to know what kind of land use zoning is needed to be able to build the ice palace on?
So what we've based it off of in the past is commercial real estate. Um, is kind of what we're looking for. But like here in Idaho, we rent from the Boy Scouts of America, and they're a
Oh,
nonprofit group. So we rent from them, and then in Minnesota, we actually are operating from the city. So we rented a city park, and the main drive is I think we're actually going to want to start sticking away from private property because of these difficult litigations and stuff. But I I think working with city or organizations is really where we're going to start looking at in the future because their parks already they're not using them much in the winter. They already have the parking. We just need to tap into. We had a fire hydrant put in this last year, so if we can tap into water mains and pull power, then that's what we need.
Very cool. Very cool. The reason I ask, so if you were to look to, purchase your own land for a more permanent solution for a location, is it safe to say that commercial use would make the most sense for that, or?
There's commercial and recreational use, and both would work. My parents, the home that we grew up in is a 7,200 square foot log home. After all the kids grew up and moved out, we turned it into a wedding event venue where we do corporate retreats, large events, family reunions, many, many weddings. So it's called LaBelle Lake, and they're zoned for recreational use. Um, and there's been struggles with that, but they're able to do that. I think we would have to look at being zoned for it. or getting special county permission to do it. I think that would have to be in a conditional use permit that we put together. That's another thing that is sometimes the headache is all the permitting. You figure out the contracts, and then you got to get city permits, building permits, county permits, sign permits, just
Hmm.
about a permit to do anything at
The
every
red
step.
tape, the red
Exactly.
tape. But
Hmm.
I do feel like there, like you were describing, there's probably, I feel like if I'm the mayor of a city, this isn't a very attractive option for me to earn some revenue for the city, by putting our, obsolete, our empty parks during the cold winter time,
Hmm.
to use. So I definitely see like there's a cool opportunity and a good partner. Besides all the red tape you have to cut through, there's probably a lot of work to be
Yeah.
done there, but good partners,
Well,
I'd imagine.
one of the really cool things was last year when we were operating, the business owners went to the city and were like, "Hey, what's going on in the area? We've been booked lately. The hotels were stacked.
Oh,
Like the restaurants were getting overrun. Like it's a Tuesday night. What's going on? That's bringing in all these people." He's like, "I need to hire more people. I need to bring in more, supplies." And so that's one of the cool things is we're bringing tens of thousands of people to that area. So the it's really cool because the town manager of where we're at in Delano, Minnesota, they're doing everything they can to keep us there. They added
yeah,
more lights to their city. They put more lights in the trees and more signage up just to help people find the Ice Palace. So it's
that's
cool to have
cool.
such an advantageous
Good.
Cool.
relationship.
Stimulate the economy. You bet. You bet.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it helps build up the community too. It's overall
Yeah.
just an all attractive thing for sure, like you're saying, Ben.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, like I said, Keith, any more questions?
No, we can connect more offline, but I was just gonna say the reason I was asking all those questions about permitting and stuff is if you guys are in the like pretty open and in the market to afford a good piece of land for that, I'm connected to a pretty powerful group of like just real estate business people of all facets, and maybe there's someone out there who
Yeah.
could pick up a piece of land like that for you, and maybe you could even finance it that way you don't have to kind of pay things off outright or anything like
Yeah.
that, but because a lot of the
Well, I
land
appreciate
usually is
that.
seller financed.
Well, I really appreciate that because I mean, like I said, I feel like that's the future of the Ice Palace between working with the cities that want us there and finding our own real estate for year-round investments.
Wheeling and
For
dealing, Keith.
sure.
That a boy. I love that.
For sure, man, for sure.
Well, so Britton, if people want to learn more about the Ice Palace, do you have an Instagram handle, Facebook page? What's the best way for them to follow the Ice Palace?
Yeah, so if you search the Ice Palace, it's usually one of the first locations that come up. But we do have two Instagrams and two Facebook accounts. We have a Ice Palace Idaho and Ice Palace Minnesota accounts that you can find. I think our following in Idaho is over 12,000 people, which is really cool. A lot of people support us there, and Minnesota's growing. So find us on our Instagram and our Facebook. We usually start posting in September to get the hype up for the season. So
Very exciting. All right. Thank you so much, Britton. This has been a lot of fun. Loved having you on talking about all of your great adventures, your amazing family, and of course, the Ice Palace.
Of course,
I
thank you so
appreciate it.
much, Brian. This was awesome.
Thank you. Good to meet you, Keith.
Yep.
Likewise. You have such a cool thing going with your family. That's I feel like every family should have something of their own to work on like that. That's
It's unique.
admirable.
Excellent. All right.
Appreciate it.
Closing
Thanks,
off,
guys.
boys.
All right.